Hello, Lorenzo here, episode 31 of KSP Next, where we discuss the state of the program, the space program that is. A real quick intro in the background here, you're looking at the launch of a certain Venus lander mission that has happened in the past. We will get to the conclusion at the end of this video. What we traditionally discuss in these videos is the state of the budget and the next goals and aspirations of the space program as depicted in the KSP Next series. Well, the budget I can be clear about, it's all good. We've got a few million credits, and we've got a slew of missions to the outer planets coming up that will pay about 2 to 3 million each, so I estimate we should be good for money. Even if we're not in the interest of keeping the program moving forward, I have gotten authorization to, if necessary, place hefty loans, bonds and other ways of financing so that we can keep the rockets flying and have the accountants off-screen worry about the money. Where will we be flying to? In the previous episodes, well, the past couple episodes, we've landed successfully on the moon and returned. In the meantime, we've also developed a nuclear rocket, so we'll be using that. In the next episode, in fact, episode 32, we'll revisit the lunar surface using a modified rocket to use a nuclear engine for rocket vehicle application, otherwise known as a NERVA, as the upper stage and indeed the transfer and command service module. That will be a singular launch lunar return mission with a beefed up lander and ascent stage. It will be a fun one. Then after that, and in reality concurrently with that, but in episodes I'll neatly separate those, we have been working on a polar orbiting space station to generate some more science points so that we can start working towards the more fancy and futuristic technologies in the tree. There are quite a few, from nuclear reactors to, at the way far end of the spectrum, faster than light Alcubierre drives. So that should be interesting, but they need thousands and thousands of science points, and for that we need space stations, and a step up from that, traveling space stations, to harvest, mine and refine that juicy science. So that's going on. We've started this series as a strict realism overhaul, RP1 realistic progression thing. We've done that. We've landed on the moon and returned a person safely. Not quite according to the Apollo formula, but fair enough, with the same engines and specifications, so that counts, and that I think marks a nice achievement to sort of depart from the strict realism engines and move forward to well, not strictly unrealistic, but at least unhappened things in real life, like nuclear reactors in space, maybe a torch drive here and there, and just generally ludicrously big rockets. On the smaller end of the scale, we have very tiny RTG driven nuclear rockets, which I fitted a couple of to a probe that has since been launched in the direction of Uranus. I've got some nice footage of that one. Of Uranus, yes, haha. And that will be an episode after the station one. This will also be the probe, or at least the methodology, powering the fund generating endeavors to the outer planets. As a quick sidebar, I read about the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer mission, the GMA mission, that was never launched but proposed. And if you have a spare hour, you should Google that and read up on it. It was to be a nuclear-powered big probe with heavy-duty, high data rate transmitters, and just utilizing a lot of the things you can do with a nuclear reactor to explore Jupiter's moons. It was deemed too ambitious and not built, unfortunately, because it seems badass, to be honest. So that's for the coming few episodes. I have just outlined them. After that, I'm thinking of making a mobile laboratory, either to visit the moon and do science there for a few years, or do a flyby around Mars and do some science on the way there, like in the solar sphere of influence, and then on the way back. This will require a slightly heavier lift vehicle than we currently have available to loft all the tons and tons of food that will be required for the multi-year expedition, and of course the big heavy nuclear engine that will inevitably be powering this endeavor. But you know, we've proven our docking capabilities. That will probably work out well. So these kind of things are in the future for the program. Now we have a little bit of content for this episode. We can switch to the Venus lander probe. In, I think, episode 26, we launched the relay that's currently broadcasting its information back. It has been inserted into a stable Venusian orbit, and we are now going to progressively lower its baryapse so as to achieve aerobraking. Well, the 270 kilometer baryapses didn't really achieve any aerobraking, so we're trying a 237 kilometer baryapses now, and I'm going to be fairly careful and decrease this in small increments because the Venusian atmosphere, of course, is fairly thick and prone to spacecraft explosion. At least that's what the analysts have reported back. Anyway, that one didn't do it, so we're now at just about 200 kilometers. Still no atmosphere at this altitude. So let's lower that again to 170, going in 30 kilometer increments. 170 going once, going twice, no atmosphere at 170. So let's lower that down to, what do we get? We get 140. 141, still plummeting down towards the, hopefully, the top of the atmosphere. Do we get some atmosphere? We have a single solar panel extended to prevent the batteries from going flat. Expect that to shatter if we do find atmosphere, but at 140 still no atmosphere. So let's lower that down further again, going down to 20 kilometer increments. 120 now. That starts encountering some atmosphere, a faint glow on the heat shield, but the solar panel can still withstand it. Did manage to return some good science from the Venusian atmosphere. That was a first for the mission, so well done there. But apart from the faint glow and the few kilometers that are being shaved off the admittedly high apoapsis, 120 is still not really doing anything. So let's bring that down to 100, shall we? There we go. The new baryapsis is 100 kilometers, and just a hair below the 120 mark, we already start getting into some trouble. The solar panel has burned off at 117, and now we're not getting so much deceleration yet, but the antennas that are attached to the heat shield are getting into trouble at 113 kilometers. They are burning off as we speak. So might we get some deceleration when the ship starts biting into actual atmosphere? We're still at less than half a G, but the heat does appear to somehow be incredibly problematic already. Still just about 1 G of deceleration, but the heat shield can't deal with it and the probe explodes. This to me was puzzling. It's like, why does a less than 1 G deceleration cause a catastrophic overheating? Maybe it's the temperature of the atmosphere. Is that modeled at all? Anyway, this encounter has put Venus quite a bit further down on the list of potential targets. We will be exploring other things first. Anyway, that's the episode. Thanks for watching, and coming up next will be the nuclear-powered lunar mission. I'm Lorenzo. Goodbye.